I just got done watching the movie The Matrix, which I've seen a number of times before I learned about gematria. So this time it just made even more sense. I already had a pretty good understanding of the basics. It's not hard. It's kind of overtly telling you about the mysteries and about how the wool's been pulled over our eyes. And I suspect that there's people that may have produced this with the intention of possibly trying to inform people that something's wrong, that you could get out of this if you want. That's my opinion anyway. So I know it's probably a little late. We got Memorial Day coming up. I don't expect a big crowd, but we'll see how it's going. I see Susan just came on. Hi, Susan. So there's one person on already. So I think this movie, The Matrix, is really interesting. So when I reveal some of these things, I think it'll make it even more interesting because yet again, there's a movie. Hey, Rich. There is yet again another movie that shows the Septenary Cipher in plain daylight. So that this is the third movie now that I have seen the Septenary Cipher on plain display. No, that's not to say that the Masons only use the Septenary Cipher or Hollywood only uses the Septenary Cipher. That is to say that they are very, I don't know, maybe it's a preeminent cipher, I think. But they definitely use all of them. Especially English ordinal. A video was just posted 5 minutes ago, Rich says. Okay. So a video was just posted 5 minutes ago, which I did not realize. I just jumped on here. I just sat down. But yeah, I was just watching that movie, The Matrix, and I said, I'm just going to have to go. I'd already prepared a bunch of stuff to say about today's news, but I wanted to get into this, The Matrix thing. I thought, I never actually posted live on Daily Dose. I always posted just on my own channel, so I just thought I'd do it. So no intention to overlap anybody else's video or anything. Didn't really think there'd be much out this late anyway. I guess I was wrong. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about The Matrix. Of course, the hero's name is Neo, right? Which was also Mr. Anderson. Thomas A. Anderson was his full name, but the Satan figure, if you will, Mr. Smith, Agent Smith, he always called Neo, he always called him Mr. Anderson. And when you go to your gematrinator.com calculator, which I encourage everybody to do when they watch these videos so that they can follow along with me, you could maybe open this video on the side, open another one. All you have to do is take your cursor, go to the top of your screen and drag it down, and that's how you keep your window to the side. At least if you're using Windows 10. I don't know how it did it before this. But then you can open up another one and you can compare them side by side so that you can watch and follow along and have another window open, the Gematrinator calculator at the same time. So I encourage you definitely that's the best way to follow along. So Mr. Anderson and Thomas A. Anderson, no worries, Rich, no worries. Thomas A. Anderson and Mr. Anderson both sum to 59. Mr. Anderson is 59 in the reverse full reduction cipher. So what you'll do when you get your gematrinator.com calculator open, you'll go to Tools, and you go to Calculator, and you'll type in the name Mr. Anderson. I assume it was spelled with an O. I suppose possibly it could have been spelled with an E, and I'm mistaken, but I doubt it since it sums to 59. And what do we know about the number 59? 59 is the number of Freemasonry. So if you went underneath, if you erase Mr. Anderson, or Thomas A. Anderson was his full name, which sums to 59 in full reduction. If you erase that and you type in Freemasonry, you'll see that it also sums to the number 59. And that's going to be important. At the beginning of the movie, they immediately start into gematria by showing you that Neo lives in room 101. Well, that's very important because 1, 1, remember zeros are not important in gematria and in numerology. So you can take out the 0. So he lives in room 101. So take out the 0 and you have an 11, which is, as Zach Hubbard says all the time, one of the most powerful numbers in numerology because it can only be divided by 1 and 11, or factored by 111. Is that the right word? So it's considered stable, strong, a power number. And so he starts off as what's the right word to say it? He represents, Neo, I would say, represents a combination of both Jesus and believers, I would say. That would be an accurate, I think, comparison, if you would. He represents the one who first believes, Jesus being the firstborn among many brethren, as they say. So he represents the indivisible, eternal truth, the one who led the awakening and the one who prospered the awakening. So I would say he was a combination of that entire good force of awakening for the people. In fact, at the end of the movie, he says, I'm going to tell everyone this news about how anything is possible if, to sum it up, if you get out of the matrix and you understand that this world is not as it seems. And I think that gematria has shown us that the world is not what it seems. I think the fact that Zach has done such a great job on waking so many people up on the truth of gematria, that the fallen ones have used these ciphers to pull the wool over our society's eyes for such a long time. And interesting, I love that movie, The Matrix, because it was actually my kid wanted to see it, and she had got it from the library, and I said, yeah, this is one of my favorite movies, in fact, and I got to explain how it relates to gematria as we were watching it. So I think maybe some things might have clicked for her in this realm that had not clicked for her previously. And of course, she's young. She's how old are my kids? 16, 15, and 14. There we go. Is that right? Gosh, I get my own kids. No, that ain't right. 13. 16, 15, and I think, gosh, I can't get it straight. See, isn't that terrible? Can't even remember your own kids' ages? That's awful. As long as I don't forget my anniversary, right? Yeah, well, been known to do that before too, right? So this is the interesting part of the matrix, because you will see that 7 people went in to the matrix together after Neo was awakened. 7. And where do we see that number 7? Well, it is the root of the word septenary. Oh, if I can get this marker and hold this microphone at the same time. Here we go. Okay, just holding on for dear life. All right, septenary cipher. Sept means 7. Like September, which is now our 9th month, used to be the 7th month on the Julian calendar. Now we use the Gregorian calendar, and it was moved to the 9th month. That's why 7/11 and 9/11 are the same thing. But here we are talking about the septenary cipher. Again, I reiterate, the septenary cipher is not the only cipher that is used, despite what some say on other channels. However, it is a preeminent one because it is based on Genesis chapter 1. So, and those who understand this knowledge work out of primarily the Old Testament, and above that, the first 5 books of the Old Testament. So the septenary cipher works like this. It's based on the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then you just count back down. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now that is 7 days of the week. Okay. 6 resting on 7, resting on the 7th day of the week. Okay. And then you just punch in your alphabet. I got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M. And I know this takes a little bit more time, but I think when we do it this way, people understand it better. I think if I just chatter off a bunch of things real quick and I don't explain them and I don't go through, that I lose a lot of people. And I think the best way is to take you through the steps a little bit at a time so that people can follow along and understand this knowledge for themselves so that they can decipher the terrible things that are going on in their own neighborhoods, for instance, as well as the national things. And then you just finish the alphabet, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. This is the septenary cipher, sept, based on 7. Okay. So obviously you see that the number 1 shares not only these 2 letters, but all these 2 letters. There's actually 4 letters that share number 1. Same thing with 2. And the only number that has only 2 letters attached to it is the number 7, G and T. Okay. Now, here's the interesting thing. 7 people went total, including Neo, into the Matrix together after Neo was awakened. Their first trip into the Matrix included 7 people, not by accident, not by coincidence. How did they get to room, or how did they get all 7 of them there, and how did they get back out of the Matrix? They had to go to room 303. Remember the phone? If you looked on the door, if you was paying attention on the door number was 303. Remember, Neo, his apartment number was room 101. So here he is, 1-1, and like we said, the zeros aren't important. So here he is, number 1, and then 3, which is ritual completion. This is how you get in and out of the Matrix, so to speak. Like Jesus was 33 years old, okay? The one who could travel in and out of the Matrix easily, right? The one who understood all things. This is the 33rd degree of masonry, 33 degrees of ritual completion, if you will. So 7 people went into the Matrix total, counting Neo, and one of those people, his name was, guess what? Oh, you're going to love this. Cipher. So if you're wondering what they were talking about or representing when 7 people went into the Matrix, they actually took the time to call the name of one of those characters Cipher. This is called a cipher. If you saw my video on Scorpion King, I encourage you to go back and see it. I showed a picture of, on Scorpion King, how they showed the septenary cipher in that movie. And they literally had a little locking mechanism where they had to move the numbers around in order to unlock the gate that had the septenary cipher expressed just like this as phases of the moon. They had, you know, slight crescent all the way up, and then 7 was the full moon, and then it went back down the other way, you know, like this. It was right there on the gate. It was great. And then all the codes in that movie were based on the septenary cipher. Everything in that movie. It was just obvious that they were pushing the septenary cipher and revealing a whole lot of truth in that movie, believe it or not, if you understand how to interpret it, which you do through this particular cipher. So Neo's accomplice at the beginning, turns out he was a bad guy. Cipher tricked the others in that movie, and he went back to room, well, he didn't get to room 33, but he made the call separately, and he got back in the real world and started killing the people in the real world. So he got out of the Matrix, went into the real world, and so Cipher was what Agent Smith, the bad guy, the devil figure, was using in the real world to kill the real people. See, the devil figure couldn't get out of the Matrix himself, so he used somebody who could go back into the real world through the cipher to kill the real people. You see what was going on there? You see how interesting that is? How many people even understand that? And like I say, they don't only code in the septenary cipher. Let me show you how I know that to be true. The Matrix, type it into your gematrinator .com calculator, and in the English ordinal cipher, it sums to 118. What's the day we're all looking out for? August 11. But even if nothing happens August 11, it's still a very important number that represents, if you just fill in the missing 0 in the middle, that's 108. Okay, that's our number of the moon, the radius of the moon. 108 moon widths from the earth to the moon, 108 sun widths from the sun to the earth, 108 earth widths across the diameter of the moon, and more than that in astronomical measurements. So 108 is very, very important regardless. Now, so that was in the English ordinal cipher. What's important about the English ordinal cipher is that it was talked about by Dad Burnett. How did his name escape me all of a sudden? Dad Burnett. Oh, I hate it when I have brain farts. I have so much information going through my head all the time. And the book, I think, is downstairs. The Secret Teaching of All the Ages. What's that guy's name, Rich? All of a sudden crud. Well, anyway, it came back to me. I've talked about him a million times, but I'm just having a brain fart. But anyway, the guy that wrote that book, Secret Teaching of All the Ages, who, by the way, would be 118 years old this year, had he still been alive. He talked about the English ordinal cipher. He didn't call it that, of course, but he does talk about it in the way that he reveals that many Masons understand that cipher. So when you put something in the English ordinal cipher, it will probably be understood by a fairly large number of interested Masons who care to decipher it. And the English ordinal cipher doesn't work like the septenary cipher. It's actually even simpler. Instead, it just goes A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, and it keeps going like this, but instead of going down, it just keeps going. It goes 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, all the way to 26. You know? Just simple as can be, a very intuitive cipher. So when something is done in that cipher, it's very easy to understand. But there is an advanced level, and this is why they use the septenary cipher so often, because it's a little more complicated. There's additional messages that can be understood by using the septenary cipher that are not revealed by using the other ciphers. And let me demonstrate what I mean by that. Let's type in the word the matrix. You can type it in as long as you got your septenary cipher open, which is under other on your Gematrinator calculator. You can type in the word the matrix and you will see the numbers, which you can just see them right here as well, but they will show up underneath the word on the calculator. So for instance, we're going to say T is what number? 7. So write the number 7 right here, okay? And we're going to look for H. So H is a 6, you know? And E is a 5, you see? And just to make it quicker, I'm just going to use my nose. 117 553. Let's talk about, before I decipher this for you, if I tell you what those numbers mean, let's think about the word the matrix for a second. Mat, M-A-T, what is that the prefix for? That is the same prefix for mother, okay? That's where we get our word mother from, same prefix. Mother, like pot, like patriot is pater. This is in Latin, it'd be mater, mother, matrix, okay? So the matrix is the womb. That's why you saw Neo when he awoke in the real world, he was in this womb-like device. And then the machine saw that he was awake. He wasn't producing any electricity for the robots anymore, so they threw him in the sewer. Okay, but he was reborn into the real world, and then Morpheus picked him up and helped transform him into a functioning person in the real world. Now, isn't it interesting that MAT is 117? What's so important about 117? Well, 117 is extremely important in the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio, the spiral from which all things grow. Okay, because this is, it looks like a snail shell. It's also like the shape of a galaxy and the spiral arms. It's the shape that is produced by flowers, by the seeds in a sunflower. That's the golden ratio, the ratio of 1.61 to 1. Okay, and all things grow by that number. And when you reduce, well, this is a little complicated. I get it. It's advanced level. I don't mean to confuse you. Feel free to ask questions. I can explain it better, give you pictures if I need to, whatever. I'll help you understand it, answer your questions. I know it's a little confusing. I admit it. Okay, but if you reduce the numbers, in other words, you add double digits until they go down to one number, for the numbers of the golden ratio, or the Fibonacci sequence, if you will, there are 24 numbers of a repeating pattern. Okay? And when you add up all those numbers, they sum up to 117. Okay? Pretty simple. Once you see it, a little complicated to grasp by me describing it. It'd be much easier, if we took the next 20 minutes and wrote it all out, but it would be too big of a distraction. But needless to say, this is a very, very important number related to the Fibonacci sequence. So just remember that, okay? That's why there's a store called 7-Eleven. This is why September 11, which we already said used to be the 7th month, okay? September 11, 9/11 are the same thing. That's why 9/11 happened when it did. Okay? Now, 53. What are we talking about? 53. We have done a lot on this number. Well, sometimes we call it 135. Sometimes we call it 53. Sometimes we call it 153. They're all the same thing. Like the pilot on that missing Malaysian Air Flight 370, who was 53 years old, and his co-pilot's name summed to 53, how Golden Gate Bridge sums to 135 in the English ordinal cipher. And so do so many other things. Bumblebee's license plate sums to 135. And the helicopter on the Bumblebee movie said 135.53 right there on its tail wing. That's why. Okay, it's all referring to the matrix or the womb or whatever they're planning to do next with their next disaster event. Now, back to the matrix and the numbers that I have here. If you add 7 plus 6 plus 5, that would be 18. So I'll just write it up here because there's not much room. Then if you add 1 plus 1 plus 7 plus 5 plus 3, that sums to 22. Now multiply 18 times 22 and you get 396. This is an important number because it is simply a condensed form of two numbers, 39 and 96. 39 is our holy number. That's why there's 39 books in the Old Testament. It represents the Trinity, and the Trinity times the Trinity. And read backwards is 93. That's why the sun, which represents God, is 93 million miles away. And 96, conversely, if you punch in the word Saturn into your gematria-nator.com calculator, you will see that Saturn sums to 96. And that's why NASA tells us that Saturn goes around the sun at 96.69 kilometers per second. All right, so that is a deciphering of the matrix. Now, we'll talk about what I was going to talk about originally before my kid was, hey, you want to watch the Matrix with me? All right. Okay, so there we go. Now let's talk about today's news. Some interesting stories. I haven't seen any of Zach's videos. He's probably already been on some of this already. I wouldn't be shocked if he already hit the nail right on the head, and you already know this, but I have not watched any other videos yet today, so might be rehashing some of it. Who knows? But I didn't see if he got to these stories or maybe he's working on other stories. I'm going to compare 3 events today, so we're going to draw 3 lines. And just to make it interesting, I looked up one of them on Wikipedia, one of them on CNN, and one of them on Fox. So nobody can say that I'm discriminating or that I'm just using a conservative media or a liberal media. It does not matter. I promise you, it does not matter. They're all the same. I used to think otherwise. I used to think Fox News was the only thing to watch. I spent countless hours believing the Matrix, okay? Just as many as you did, okay? You might have believed that sports were real at one time. All right. And I did too. I just never watched them, and I knew they were mind control of some sort. I just didn't know exactly to what degree they were mind control. All right. Today in the news on CNN, they talked about a shark attack. And they also mentioned these other stories in each one of these networks, okay? But I just looked them up separately so nobody could complain that I was just being biased from on one side or the other. And then on Fox News, I looked up the story about a woman who was lost in Maui. For 17 days. Both of these events, by the way, happened in Maui and were reported on the same day. Wonder why that was. Let's see if we can figure out some reasons. Well, if you've got your gematrinator.com calculator open, and I hope you do, makes it much easier to follow along. Type in the word Maui, M-A-U-I, and you will see that it sums to 17. I did not write down in my notes which cipher, though, but it was one of the 4 base ciphers. I did tell you earlier that movies tend to use the Septenary Cipher more often than not, the Bible cipher, but you will see that the news tends to use the other 4 ciphers more often than not. But they also use the Septenary Cipher too. All right. And you may notice that the word kill equals 17. Isn't that weird? Because this shark attack victim died. Okay. This woman nearly died. And 5/26 is 17 weeks and 6 days before or something. Probably before August 11. I forgot what I wrote down here. I didn't make my notes very good. Maybe I can look that up real quick. But I think it's 17 weeks before August 11, possibly. Does that sound right? 6/26, 7/26, 8. Does that sound right? 12, 13? Maybe not. I don't know. I forgot one. It's dumb me. Oh, well, I hate it when I don't make good notes. All right. Well, anyway, back to what I was doing. Now, in 2018, there was an alarm that went off in Hawaii concerning a missile attack. That was considered later to be a false alarm. This happened on January 13 of 2018. What do we know about 113? That's our number of deception. It's our lie. By the way, what does shark attack equal in the English ordinal? 113. Huh. Well, that's interesting. If you read that story in CNN, you will see that the shark attack victim's name was never given. Isn't that kind of strange? Why would you put a story out about a shark attack? How often does Zach talk about how shark attacks have to do with sports decodes? And I would not be surprised if this has some sports implication as well. Then check sports. That is not my specialty as of yet. I will get there someday. The missile attack on 1/13/2018 happened at 8:07 a.m. As I've already said today, that zeros are not important in gematria and numerology, so you could just take out that 7. Murder equals 38. And remember, this guy, the shark attack victim, died. And the woman who was lost for 17 days, her name was Amanda, which equals 38. So we have a 38, a 38, and I was doing 807, wasn't I? See how I get confused. Oh, 38 minutes later, that's what it was. 807. Then they said 38 minutes later that, state officials were blamed for miscommunication. Okay, so the missile attack happened, or the supposed missile attack alarm happened at 8:07 in Hawaii, and then they reported that 38 minutes later, the officials were blamed for miscommunication, and there really was no attack. Now, let's see. There was more to 8:07. I know there was, but, well, there it is. There it is. Okay. So that's what happens when I write sloppy. Okay. They said about the woman who was missing for 17 days in Maui. She said, "It's been a surreal moment." Anytime they italicize something or they put the quotation marks on some words in a news story, Zach says you should highlight that, copy and paste it into your Gematrinator calculator because it means something, okay? So it's been a surreal moment. I'll just abbreviate here. It's been a surreal moment. That phrase sums to 87. So there's our 807, you see? And it also happened in the Makawao, I guess. I don't know. I don't speak Hawaiian. M-A-K. And yes, I know they speak English, but it's not their native language. M-A-K-A-W-A-O forest. That equals 87 as well. Huh. Things sure are starting to tie together, aren't they? They also put in the quotations from Amanda said it was the toughest time she ever had. Well, why in the world would they just put the word toughest? Why would they put the word toughest in quotation marks and not the entire sentence that she said? Because it's a coded word. You're supposed to understand its gematria. They do that on purpose because they're trying to make a point. So toughest equals 38 again. So here we have 38 here, we have 38 here, we have 38 here, and 38 here. Lots of 38s going on here. And it's been a surreal moment. Was actually not only 87, but it also summed to 318. And like we've said many times in gematria, the ones really aren't that important, just like the zeros. Same thing as 38. All right. Now, the shark victim was a 65-year-old man from California. I'll abbreviate, okay? But if you type out the entire word California into your Gematrinator.com calculator, it equals, guess what? 65. I mean, you talk about fake news, okay? And honestly, I do have to say this. Even though all the channels are gematrinated, CNN is the easiest to find the riddles every time. I mean, they are so freaking blatant on CNN. I think a 3-year-old could uncode this stuff. I really could decode this stuff. It's just, I mean, sometimes you have to look a little bit in Fox, but CNN just really lays it out there for you. If my suspicion is this is an entirely fake story, okay? Like the president always says, and I'm not saying the president's life is any less fake. Okay, I get it. But I'm just saying, he always calls CNN fake news. Yeah, they're like above and beyond fake. They make up news even more often than the rest of them, I think. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if this didn't even happen at all. It's just completely contrived numbers. Okay, of course, I don't know that. Wasn't there, you know. They could have just, there could have been a real story there, and they just used it by the numbers and constructed it in such a way to make a point. And they do that too sometimes. So he was a 65-year-old from California, and California equals 65 in reverse full reduction cipher. He had no name, but we do know that the last lunar eclipse happened on 1/21 of this year. Last lunar eclipse. And shark equals 21. And this month, and today was in May, okay? We're in the month of May right now. And May equals 12, the reflection of 21. Just 21 backwards, okay? Not by accident, that's for sure. Amanda over here, who was lost for 17 days in Maui, and remember this shark attack also happened in Maui. She said that it just warms my heart, and it was in quotations. I'm going to abbreviate it, okay? It just warms my heart. And would you want to guess what that sums to? 223. And that is why 322 skull and bones insignia. Just like that new insurance commercial. By the way, you got to pay attention on commercials. I mean, the insurance commercial, they're opening a door, and on the door, you always got to look on doors in movies and commercials. Right there, they're in a room. The room is 322. No, it was the house door that going into the house. The house number address was 322. Okay. And of course, I've showed some pictures of some of my other videos. Sherlock Holmes was walking by a 322. You know, it's on a Batman movie. It's 322. It's all over the place. They always show that skull and bones number. That's why George Herbert Walker Bush's funeral. At this funeral, son Bush arrived at 3:22 p.m. That's why Tim Russert, after he interviewed George Bush and John Kerry about skull and bones, was found dead a week or so later, and the reported time of his death was 3:22 p.m. These are very important skull and bones numbers. He's asking too many questions, right? Okay. So the missile attack was on 1/13, and today's date is 5/26. So from 1/13 to 5/26 is a year and 133 days. All that is just the ones and the threes yet again. 113, 113. And by the way, all this stuff happened in Hawaii, which also sums to 33. You see how writing it out? Oh, and it also sums to 111, by the way. So, you know, ones, threes, you see? Not by coincidence. But you see how writing it out like this just makes it easier to understand, easier to compare when you see it all at the same time. Sometimes I think if you just do it in a row and it just kind of moves up your screen, you can't see the big picture very well. I feel like this format makes it a little easier to see and compare. Now, they did say that in the missile attack, the emergency alert system is what notified the people. That was what I'll abbreviate emergency alert system. But if you spell out the entire word, that equals 90 in full reduction, and it happened in January. which equals 90 in English Ordinal. Okay. So a whole lot goes together here. I think there's something in the news today about death in Hawaii for a reason. I'm open to suggestions as to what their overall point is. But this interested me also because today's date is 5/26. And that means there's 219 days left in this year. 219 days left in 2019. And I believe we are still in the 219th synodic lunar month since 9/11/01. 219 synodic lunar months. I know it's connected. What the overall point is, I don't know. Okay, because when I looked at the numbers today, the numbers didn't seem to go with these particular stories, in my opinion, when I looked at the date numerologies for today. A lot of people said some things would happen today, but I think they were thinking bigger than this. And then I haven't checked the news here in about, I don't know, 7 or 8 hours. So I don't know if something's happened in the last 7 or 8 hours that I don't know about. And you all are wondering, well, how come you don't know about this? Well, because I was watching The Matrix with my kid, I guess, and grilling brats and taking my wife on a date and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, well, such is life. That's all I had for today. So it's been going on for about 41 minutes. That's a pretty good amount of information. So I think I'm just going to cut it off here. Thanks for watching. I will upload it to YouTube to Bow and Arrow, BOWE, space, the letter N, space, capital A, Arrow. Obviously, if you're watching it here on Daily Dose of Gematria, you already know about our Facebook page, so there's no reason to plug that. But I will also make a point to note that I learned this information originally from Zach Hubbard on Gematria Effect News on YouTube last November, like just 6 months ago. So I'm relatively new to this stuff, but if you pay attention, you take notes, stop and rewind this stuff, write it all down, compare your notes from today with notes from the future and notes you've already taken, and you will be shocked how fast your knowledge builds. So I guess that's it. We'll see you next time.